Bihari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari.
Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari.
Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari.
Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari.
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yamuna Tira Vanachari.
Yamuna Tira Vanachari.
Yamuna Tira Vanachari.
Yamuna Tira Vanachari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
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 Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari.
Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari.
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yamuna Tira Vanachari.
Yamuna Tira Vanachari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva
Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva
Jaya Koti Vaishnavrinda ki
Jai
Shri Prabhupada ki
Jai
Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda
Jai
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
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 Om Jnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uta Parakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sagana Raghunatam Nitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Paridarsaitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakanitam Sha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Devacha Adhidanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavani Paschatradeshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna everyone. So welcome to our Friday Bhakti Viksha discussion today. So today we are beginning chapter 12 on a very auspicious day. Today is the appearance day of the most divine Mother Sita. This is Sita Navami, the appearance day of Mother Sita, who appeared on the 9th day in this month. And Mother Sita's pastimes are a perfect example for us in the mood of devotion. She shows the perfection of role as daughter, as wife, and also as mother. And so her activities are a perfect set of instructions. As we know, she appeared in the kingdom of King Janak, and her appearance was very, very glorious. King Janak was plowing and cultivating the fields, having performed some Vedic sacrifices. And in plowing the field, his plow, the tip of his plow, hit or got stuck on some object. And then when he unearthed that object, it was a beautiful golden box. And then within that box was the divine Mother Sita in the baby form. And so we know that we call her the daughter of Bhumi Devi, having come from Earth, Mother Earth. And King Janak was childless at that time, and so he was very ecstatic to receive this child, and so took her home to the palace, and she grew up. He later had another daughter by the name of Urmila, and the two girls grew up very wonderfully, and Sita Devi exuded exalted activities and pastimes during her childhood. She was extraordinarily beautiful, but her beauty was in her character, not only in her physical appearance, but in her character. She showed a great mood of devotion, worshiping the Supreme Lord in many, many sweet ways. And she also showed her great power, her great strength. There are different versions of this story of how she was very playfully playing with the bow of Lord Shiva in King Janak's palace. We know that this bow became the test of whoever could lift it would be qualified to marry Mother Sita. But how that test came about was that in her childhood, and again, there are a couple of different versions. One, she was playing ball, and the ball went underneath the table of this bow, and so she very easily just moved the bow as a child would move a piece of paper to get their desired object, and retrieve their ball. And when they saw how Mother Sita, this small child, was able to very easily lift this bow that ordinarily took hundreds and hundreds of very strong men, they were struck in awe of that feat, and the sages advised that it would only take someone very, very strong and extraordinary that could match her character and ability, and thus King Janak set the criteria for which who could marry her, which we all know very famously Lord Ramachandra had picked up. There's another pastime or explanation of how once Lord Parshuram had gone and visited King Janak, and he left his bow outside, and his bow was of equal strength and very difficult to carry and move, and he left it outside the door and went in to meet King Janak. But meanwhile, Sita Devi, was a young child, came and saw this bow and began playing with it, instead of playing it like a horse, and was just playing. And when Parshuram was leaving, he thought, where did my bow go? And he saw Mother Sita sitting in the distance playing with his bow as if it was a small toy. So different pastimes are explained show her strength. But again, her strength was not in physical strength. It was in the purity of her service. And we know from the pastimes of Ramayan, her steadfast service when Lord Ram was banished to the forest. He was prepared to go alone, as was required by the banishment. But Mother Sita would not leave his side and said that my attachment is to you, not to this palace or to the royal opulences, but it is to you. And if you are in the forest, my pleasure will come. And also, being in the forest and this princess and then queen who had never endured any type of difficulty was now going to endure a life of an ascetic, sleeping on the floor where there are worms and scorpions and gnats and bugs and eating whatever might be available, sometimes lengths and periods of fasting. But that was of no consequence to her because her happiness was not coming from her external material situation, but it was coming from her service to her beloved Lord Ram. And in this way, she teaches us the mood of devotional service. Our service should not be predicated on some external circumstance. If things are good, if my health is good, if the environment is okay, then my service is there. Mother Sita shows us service in any mode, in any condition, in any state, is equally satisfying when one has purity of heart in their intent of service. So in this way, Mother Sita shows us the path of being a wonderful servant of the Supreme Lord. And so on this day we pray for her mercy, that we may also obtain some of her blessings, so that we may make progress in the path of devotional service, following in her footsteps and following the example she showed of selfless, determined, unending service to the Supreme Lord. So wish everybody a very blissful and auspicious Appearance Day of Mother Sita. And it's quite appropriate then, we are beginning the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita today. And let's have some participation since everybody is on mute. What is the title of chapter 12? You cannot bribe with extra prasad today. What's the title of chapter 12?
Devotional service.
Nobody?
Devotional service, Prabhuji, sorry.
Devotional service, yes. So the title of this chapter is Devotional Service. So what do we think Krishna is going to speak about in this chapter?
Devotional service.
Hmm?
Devotional service.
Wow! Yes. So we know this section of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7 through 12, Krishna is speaking about devotional service. He has given Raja Vidya Rajaguyam in the 9th chapter. This Guyam being most confidential knowledge. And so now he's going to speak about devotional service. And this is a relatively short chapter, 20 verses. And Krishna, of course, is going to speak about devotional service. And in particular, the last 8 verses, Krishna is going to speak about the qualities that make one dear to Krishna. And he ends every verse with this Me Priya, which is dear to me. And so Krishna, if we want to know how to become dear to Krishna, we can read verses 13 through 20. So I look forward to relishing these verses, and Krishna is going to speak about so many of the wonderful devotional qualities that we can try to bring about in our life. And Krishna very specifically is saying, this is what's qualities that make one dear to me. So we have nothing to guess. We have nothing to wonder. Krishna is going to lay it out in black and white details for all of us. And of course, How are we going to develop these qualities? More questions and answers today. How are we going to develop qualities? I see some moving of lips, but I'm not hearing anything.
By chanting, Guruji.
By chanting. Yes, Guruji. By chanting, these qualities automatically come out. Because these qualities of devotion, they are natural to who we are. Our intrinsic nature is pure and full of these beautiful qualities Krishna will describe. But when we hear these qualities of not being envious to anyone, being equipoise, being kind, all these, what is our initial reaction? What is our initial reaction when we hear some of these qualities?
How will we develop it? It's hard to do it.
It's hard to do it. Yeah. But do we have a wonderful, powerful tool within our disposal to make the hard very easy?
Yes, with Krishna's blessing, yes.
Yes.
Mercy.
And what is that tool, that process again we're going to use to develop these qualities?
Chanting.
Chanting. So it is by the enthusiastic chanting of the holy names that these natural qualities will come out from within. Just as much as a diamond buried in the mud does not lose its ability to sparkle. Nothing has happened to the diamond, it is just covered with mud. So when we look at the diamond, we don't see sparkle, we see mud. But to restore that sparkle, all we have to do is remove the mud. We don't have to recreate the diamond, we don't have to put any special chemical, nothing. Just remove the mud. So similarly, the spirit soul is full of these beautiful qualities, but they are covered by our material conditioning. And so by the chanting of the holy names, one is cleansing the covering of the soul. And so while these qualities may seem, very lofty, very high, maybe even we use the word impossible, but we should know we actually have them. So then how it can be impossible? We actually have them. We just have to bring them out. And that's why Prabhupada says impossible is a word in the Fool's Dictionary. Because with the power of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, anything is possible. So this chapter is going to take us to a very beautiful place in the, I think, 7th or 8th verse. I'm just reading which one it is. It is the 6th and 7th verse. Krishna is going to say that my devotee, to those who worship me, I am their swift deliverer. So Krishna is giving the direct promise here that he is going to deliver us from this ocean of birth and death. And he doesn't say just deliver, he says swift. Right? We want things quickly. And Krishna is saying right here, I am the swift. And he not only says, I'll arrange, he says, I am. He says, I am personally coming. And this is the ultimate mercy of the Lord. So we'll discuss this and some of the very nice verses in the coming weeks. So in this chapter, Arjuna opens the chapter with a question. And the question, this is the first verse, reads, Arjuna inquired, which are considered to be more perfect, those who are always engaged in your devotional service, or those who worship the impersonal Brahman, the unmanifested? So, Krishna has been speaking directly since the 7th chapter, even intimated at the end of the 6th chapter, spoke directly in the 8th chapter, 9th chapter, 11th chapter, even 10th chapter for that regard, that the highest of all persons is the bhakta, the devotee, the bhakti yogi. Right? He said in the 7th chapter, there is no truth superior to me. He has said in the 8th chapter, one who thinks of me becomes my devotee, attains me. Ninth chapter, he spoke so much about devotional service. So Arjuna here is asking, which is the better path? And what he means by devotional service of those who worship the impersonal is the personal path or the impersonal path? Which is better? Now, we know that this chapter is coming after Arjuna seeing the universal form. So Arjuna wants to, one, clarify and confirm that his attraction is to the two-armed form of Krishna. That is what he found to be very attractive. And thus he asked, Krishna, please let me see you in your original form. And so he wants to confirm, is this still the best? And he also wants all of us to understand that one can be drawn to this universal form, but that relationship is one of an impersonal nature. So Arjuna is asking this question. And Srila Prabhupada in his purport, we'll read the purport to the second verse, so we'll just summarize the purport of the first one, is that there are two types of transcendentalists. One is the impersonalist, and the other is the personalist. So let's just define these two terms a little bit so we're clear. The impersonalist worships Krishna in his impersonal feature. So they don't worship the Lord as a person, but they worship the energy, the Brahma Jyotir, the effulgence of Krishna. Okay? So in that worship, there is one of sort of awe and reverence and splendor, but there is no, reciprocation. There is no joking. There is no honoring of prasadam. There is no roaming in the forest together. There is no swimming in the rivers. There is no offering of flowers. You don't have that interaction with something impersonal. Just like if we want to, interact with the sunlight, how can we interact with it? We can simply acquire it on our body and maybe appreciate it, but there is no two-way, sort of relationship that exists, right? There can be an appreciation, but it limits. So this is the impersonalist. Whereas the personalist worships Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we know through so many different conversations that there are three levels of understanding Krishna, three phases. And the first is the impersonal, the next is the Paramatma, and the ultimate complete realization of Krishna is as Bhagavan, as the person. Okay? So these are two paths that are being described here. And Srila Prabhupada is commenting how Krishna has already spoken so elaborately about the relationship of the living entity with the Supreme Person. So Krishna now is going to answer this question of Arjuna in the second verse. Which is better, to worship your impersonal feature or your personal feature? So we'll read the answer that Krishna gives as well as the purport. So in verse 2, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "Those who fix their minds on my personal form and are always engaged in worshiping me with great transcendental faith are considered by me to be most perfect." Doesn't really give any ambiguity. Most perfect. Just like in earlier answering Arjuna's question, which is superior, inactive or active? Krishna said, by far, it's better to be active. So here, Krishna says, it is most perfect to worship the personal form of the Lord. So now let's read Srila Prabhupada's purport. In answer to Arjuna's question, Krishna clearly says that he who concentrates upon his personal form and who worships him with faith and devotion is to be considered most perfect in yoga. For one in such consciousness, there are no material activities, because everything is done for Krishna. A pure devotee is constantly engaged. Sometimes he chants, sometimes he hears or reads books about Krishna, sometimes he cooks prasadam, or goes to the marketplace to purchase something for Krishna, or sometimes he washes the temple or the dishes, whatever he does not let a single moment pass without devoting his activities to Krishna. Such action is in full samadhi. So, next week we'll discuss why Krishna is saying that this personal path is by far most perfect. He's going to speak about the great difficulty of the impersonal path and how it is not complete until one comes to the personal path. So, but today, let's focus on this verse because there are three very important aspects to this verse. The first is, what did Krishna say is the most perfect way to worship him? Easy answer, easy quiz time today. In what form is he most perfectly worshipped?
Personal.
His personal form. So those who fix their minds, right? Manmanavam madbhakto, Krishna is going to say, think of me, become my devotee. Right? So this aspect of worshipping the Supreme Lord as a Supreme Person is the ultimate, the topmost, the most complete form of worship. Right? So ultimately, both paths, personal and impersonal, are paths of spiritual transcendentalism. But this is the most perfect. Now, those who do it, the next aspect is, are always engaged in worshiping him. So what does this mean? Always engaged in worshiping him. Need some more participation today. What does always engaged mean?
Constantly working or doing something for him.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Raga Prabhu, you can offer something?
Like such a term, like always in Krishna, Prabhupada mentions, like always in Krishna consciousness, doing everything for the pleasure of Krishna and connecting our activities for the pleasure of Krishna. That makes the complete. It's not like morning chanting and afternoon business and night something. No, everything related to Krishna consciously.
Yeah. Very nice, because sometimes we have this idea, I have to balance, right? My material activities with my spiritual activities. We often use this term balance. But actually, that concept is not what Krishna is recommending. He has said in the 10th chapter, in the Chaturshloki verses, right? One is constantly engaged in my service. Unflinchingly, he uses so many different adjectives. So the idea here is that one uses whatever their activities are in the service of Krishna. And as Prabhuji mentioned, not just in the morning when we're doing our chanting or doing our worship, and then the rest of the day we are forgetful of Krishna. Right? But to be constantly engaged in Krishna, one needs to know how to dovetail all of their activities in Krishna consciousness. So it doesn't mean that one spends the whole day, in the temple or chanting or reading or singing. That if one is fortunate, that is great. But for those who are at least in the Grahastha ashram, they have other responsibilities, right? Going to office, maintaining the house, raising children, performing different responsibilities. So, but one in that position also can be fully engaged by making all of those activities Krishna conscious. The devotee who is perfectly situated in their Krishna consciousness also goes to the office, but uses the means, the results of that work for Krishna's pleasure, not their own sense pleasure. One raises and protects and takes great care of their family, not for their own sense pleasure or their own pride, or whatever else reasons may be, but out of the opportunity to return Krishna's children to them, to raise them in a Krishna conscious way. One maintains their home very nicely, not shabbily, but not for one's sense enjoyment or one's pride in the neighborhood, but for the pleasure of Krishna, that Krishna may have a nice place to reside. So whatever means we have, the best possible. So Prabhupada gives the examples in the purport so many different ways. Whatever ability we have, we offer to Krishna. Because Krishna really has everything. So whatever we are offering him, whether it's our money, whether it's our energy, whether it's our word, whatever it is, he has everything. So really what we are offering to him is our love that accompanies whatever it is that we are offering. That is what he is looking for. So the devotee is always engaged in worshiping him. And when we hear the word always engaged, we think, oh, that's not practical today. Maybe sometime in the future it will be. But right now I'm busy with X, Y, and Z. And so what Krishna teaches us in the Bhagavad Gita is whatever X, Y, and Z is, let's learn how to make that also Krishna consciousness. And with some small adjustments, they can very easily become Krishna consciousness. Because the activities for the most part remain the same. But it is the why behind them that we modify to make it bhakti. And ultimately, everything one does is for the pleasure of Krishna. Because when one experiences devotional service with this mood of pleasing Krishna, they find, wow, this is a much better formula than trying to enjoy my own senses. Now, the third aspect of this verse, so first aspect, personal form. Second aspect, always engaged. And now the third, anybody want to guess what is the third aspect of this verse we want to discuss? Sometimes the hardest part for us.
Is that a transcendental faith, Prabhuji?
Yes, Mataji, it is with faith. Right? So, this faith in who?
Faith on Krishna.
Faith on Krishna. Because until there is faith in Krishna, one will not be able to be always engaged in his service. Because one will wonder, well, what about where my chapatis will come tomorrow if I'm always serving Krishna? Right? What about this? What if something else is missing? So in order to serve Krishna always, one must have faith. And so Prabhupada in earlier purports describes that faith means my strong belief that Krishna consciousness, service to Krishna, is the only means by which I can attain happiness and peace. The only means. To the extent I have faith in that statement, then why I would go to any other activity? If I have faith that cyanide is bad for me, will I take 1% of my diet including cyanide? What percent of my diet will be cyanide? 0. Why? Because I have full faith that it will kill me. So easy. So if I have full faith that this material world is dukhalayam and ashashvatam, and conversely, devotional service to Krishna is full of bliss, then does it take any really strict or hard discipline to be fully fixed in Krishna consciousness? It actually happens very naturally. It's so obvious. Why I would do anything else? So what holds me back from rendering service to Krishna completely? It's my lack of complete faith that Krishna is my only protector. He is my only provider. At the end of the day, we either have to place faith in Krishna or ourselves. Now, in the course of our life, how many wrong decisions have we made? Just one or two? Maybe a few more?
Yes.
How many times the plan we made didn't go the way we wanted it? A couple times? Once or twice? Maybe thrice. How many times what we thought we wanted, when we got it, it actually ended up being worse for us and giving us a worse outcome than before? Once or twice, or just thrice? How many times we have tried to do something and that attempt failed? Always we are making mistakes. We are erring. We are illusioned by what will give us our desired goal. But Krishna, this Supreme Personality of Godhead, his plan has never gone wrong. His plan is always perfect, always complete, and results in perfection. So are we going to put our faith in ourselves or in Krishna? Krishna is much more responsible than we are. And Krishna is going to tell us, to my devotee, I am the swift deliverer. I have you. I'll take care of you, he says. So to the extent we have faith in this statement, then rendering devotional service 24/7 becomes easy. As easy as it is to be 24/7, avoiding cyanide. It is, one avoids the material world, knowing it is all death and poison. Right? So when one has faith in Krishna, then devotional service becomes very fixed and full and complete and perfect and pure. So by the process of reading and understanding this philosophy, it helps build our faith. But what is the ultimate fuel to propel and to increase our faith? What is going to increase our faith in Krishna?
Constant hearing from your devotees.
Hearing, constant hearing. And hearing should translate into?
Desire.
Desire, strong desire. So hearing increases the desire, the attraction. And that should translate into?
Constant bhakti.
Constant bhakti. And specifically? God, what did you say?
Chanting glorification of Krishna.
Kirtanam, chanting of the holy names. Whatever we need to acquire to chant the holy names of the Lord, sincerely, enthusiastically, with great quality. And the more we chant, the more our faith will build. The stronger and unshakable our faith will become. In times of difficulty, sometimes our faith becomes shaken. But that faith also, on the other side of that, becomes stronger. Because we realize there is no other shelter but the Supreme Lord. And so the pure devotees have great faith. Srila Prabhupada, think about the faith he had. He boarded a steamship with just 2 trunks full of some books and a few dollars, and ventured to a land he knew nothing about, and lived in very precarious positions. But he had faith. Krishna would protect him. He would not have money to even buy basic fruits and vegetables. Day to day, each day, where money would come, he would not know. But it would come. Each day, he would hold the programs at 26 2nd Avenue. And if someone didn't drop something in a donation jar on the way out, next day, nothing to eat for him. Nothing. Now, could we imagine being in that type of situation? We are distressed if the grocery store is out of some rice or something because of this situation. We become very tense. But he had nothing. But actually he had everything because he had faith. Krishna will provide. And he knew Krishna will make everything happen. He didn't have faith in himself. He had faith in the Supreme Lord. And not a day went where Krishna did not bring to Srila Prabhupada everything. I was mentioning last night, he would offer to buy a temple without a penny in his pocket. But he knew Krishna will arrange if he wanted it. So this faith is an important part of our devotional service, and it becomes solidified as we continue to take the process of devotional service by chanting. So the 3 aspects of this verse in which Krishna is establishing the superior path, he's specifying those who worship my personal form, they do it 100% of the time, unfalteringly, constantly, whatever word we want to use, and they do it with faith. One is not scared or worried or even doing it ritualistically. No, they have full confidence. Just like the cowherd boys in Vrindavan. In Krishna book, Srila Prabhupada describes the pastime of Aghasura. And Aghasura has assumed the form of a giant snake. And the snake has opened its mouth. And the cowherd boys are looking. Say, looks like a dark cave, a big cave. And then one cowherd boy, looks like a snake actually. And they are discussing like this. And say, let's go in. Now, what boy would go into the mouth of a giant snake? Nobody. But they're saying, well, if it's a snake, no big deal. Krishna's with us. He'll take care of it. They have faith in the protection of Krishna. And in this way, they enter the mouth of the demon. And of course, Krishna saved them. But you can see there's strong faith in Krishna in all aspects. So this is chapter 12, verse 2. And next week we'll discuss the why Krishna has established his personal form of worship being superior, describing the difficult and lengthy process of impersonal worship. And then in the coming weeks we'll discuss these very beautiful verses about devotional service, pure devotional service, and the beautiful qualities that are very endearing to Lord Krishna. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Sati Vaishnavrinda. Any comments or questions or realizations you can share?
A quick comment from Zeke here. The personal, the faith in my case, like all the ABCD helped me personally, because even the association is missing. I feel like sometimes it is getting diluted. Even association is there. If I am not reading Prabhupada's books, I feel like it is getting diluted. I feel like it is a combination of everything, like ABCD. It it is helping us to be in this faithful
Yeah,
position.
thank you, brother. It's nice. It gives us opportunity to participate in different varieties that fuel our devotional service, right? Association is so important because when we see other devotees in having faith, we become inspired by that faith.
Yeah.
When we read Srila Prabhupada's books and we see that time and time again when Krishna is coming and delivering and protecting and saving, and we're going to discuss tomorrow, Prahlad Maharaj's faith in Lord Nrsimhadev. These pastimes, by reading them, they build our faith. By honoring Krishna Prasadam, we experience so much, how this can taste so amazing. And of course, all of that leads to more enthusiastic chanting. So yes, they're all connected and important in our process. Any other comments or questions?
Disha Mataji is asking, Hare Krishna, thank you for the wonderful class. Which one of the activities would you rather give time to? Engaging in voluntary activities like making face masks, engaging in research about current virus, etc., or using that time in rather reading and listening pastimes if there is a choice?
Yeah. It's a question with some sort of practical considerations, but at the end of the day, the disease that we are trying to solve is our separation from Krishna. And the material disease, whatever it may be, the current iteration of it is this COVID-19, but in the future it'll be another, and in the past it was another. So the real solution is by awakening our devotional service. So we can prioritize our activities based on those priorities. So to the extent we have sufficient time, our opportunity to engage in reading and becoming more inspired in the process of devotional service is very beneficial for us. But that endeavor is not a selfish endeavor. The devotee is not satisfied by saving themselves. The devotee has great pain and angst in seeing the suffering of others, but not the bodily suffering, the suffering they're experiencing in separation from Krishna. So the devotee is inspired to sacrifice and compromise their own comforts and benefits for the welfare of others, but for the eternal welfare. And so that is Srila Prabhupada in a life example. He sacrificed his retirement age, where he could have engaged in blissful bhajan. He gave it all up to engage all of us in the process of devotional service. So the mood of the devotee in reading, in studying, is to increase their own faith, increase their own experience, so that they may be inspired to go out and share it with others. It is not just self-salvation, but it is about sharing this. So, what activities we can do to share, because even if we, solve this existing disease, if we don't change the consciousness of action, another one is coming right behind it. So more and more powerfully, use of our resources, our time and energy, is how we can educate in whatever way possible, but how to live a Krishna conscious life and stop this thieving mentality. So by reading ourselves, we can become more inspired to then go out and share this knowledge. So, any other comments or questions? Yes?
Mohan Gaur Prabhu is asking, Hare Krishna Prabhu, can I understand this verse as rishis and sages meditating are always on impersonal form for a selfish desire, and the devotees who are seeing Krishna as a person with faith and performing devotional service is not having any self-desire?
Yeah.
There's also a follow-up to this question. If an aspiring devotee having self-desire at the beginning of his devotional journey, then does it mean that he's attached more to the impersonal form rather the personal form?
So the first part of the question is, are all the rishis and sages, impersonalists with a material motive or a motive in their worship? So we can't make sort of broad stroke comments that they are or not, because some may be, some may not be. Krishna has already explained in the 6th chapter the dhyana yoga, this Ashtanga yoga, that is a intense meditative process. Well, that is not an impersonal type of meditation, because they are worshiping or meditating on Paramatma. So it is a second level of understanding of Krishna. So it is not necessarily, but often it is. So often, the hard, sort of Vedantists who encourage this sort of, meditation on the impersonal, that is the idea. And so, the philosophy of wanting to merge into the supreme effulgence, that is impersonalism. The idea to serve with love the Supreme Lord, that is personal. Because as soon as there's love, it means there's an exchange. Love can never be one way, right? I cannot love my computer because it cannot love me back. I may think I love my computer, but it's not. It's an object. So as soon as there's love, there is an exchange with a person. And so bhakti is always an exchange of a person. So when we have approached Krishna in a motivated state with some desires, Krishna explains in the 7th chapter that these persons are also still very pious, because it's still bhakti, but it's mixed bhakti. It's mixed bhakti. It's not pure yet, but Krishna says they're very pious, because by worshiping me with their desires, they'll soon become purified of those desires, and will soon come to the pure platform. So that is still within the realm of personal worship. It is just not pure. But as soon as I say Krishna, it's personal, because I'm referring to him as a person. As soon as I say devotional service, it means it is the personal worship. Impersonal, and again we'll talk more next week about it, but impersonal worship is really the desire to merge into Brahman, the effulgence. That is the impersonalism. Okay? Any other questions or comments?
Well, yeah, I had the same question, here in the first verse, Prabhuji, those who worship the impersonal Brahman. So what kind of worship will be there in that? Because here we have the Navadita Bhakti we do. But what is the worship of it? I'm not able to understand what the question itself, what is the worship part in the impersonalism?
Yeah, it's very difficult, because it's very, and that's why Krishna is going to explain in the next few verses why that path is very unpleasing, because it's just like how you can worship the sunlight. Right? You can appreciate it to some degree, you can appreciate its meaning and significance, but at the end of the day, you cannot get into a deep level of worship. So ultimately, when the desire of the impersonalist, see, the impersonalists, most impersonalists, I have to use the word most impersonalists, they have a desire to become God. They have envy of God. So they say that when you get moksha, you merge into God. If the God is a person, then I cannot become that person. So in order to support that desire and that idea, I have to deny the existence of God as a person. So most impersonalists will say God is not a person. He only assumes a form when he comes to this material world. But otherwise, he is impersonal. And that allows me then to, believe in the idea that I can also become God. So it is born out of envy. And that is why this philosophy is so dangerous. Because it is ultimately envious of the Supreme Lord. It is offensive. It is a great offense. If someone comes to you and says, you don't exist, that is an insult. So the most impersonalists have that view. Now there are some who we call our innocent impersonalists. They just don't know. Wait a minute. There's something beyond the effulgence? There's a person? Oh, tell me more. Right, so that is a not fully informed impersonalist. So we cannot say that all impersonalists are atheists. But the impersonalists who deny the existence of Krishna as a person, that's an atheistic mentality, though it seems to be spiritual. And so this worship becomes very dry and, again, not according to any type of shastra. And it really becomes this really speculative, analysis. And in Chaitanya Charitamrita, we see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, defeating this philosophy with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, with Prakashananda Saraswati, and others, showing the flaws in this logic. Is that okay, Prabhu? I don't know if I addressed the point of
Thank you, Lord.
worship.
Thank you very much.
Any other comments or questions? Okay.
We talked about faith, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
So I know you said chanting. What else can we do? Chanting, devotional service.
Keep chanting, keep doing a devotional service that will build our faith. Ultimately, we're building our faith in the reality, right? So by the practice of devotional service, again, just like the child who is nervous about his or her ability to swim, how they will build faith in their ability to swim? Yes, they can hear all the instruction about how the body is buoyant, how if you move your arms this way, you will float. They can even see other children in the pool swimming and having a nice time. But ultimately, their faith will build by their own practice of swimming. Then it takes time. The first time they get in the pool, they don't have strong faith. But the second time, third time, 10th time, 100th time, each time their faith builds. Okay? So we acquire knowledge. We acquire this information to fuel our practice. If it doesn't lead to practice, then that faith won't build, right? It'll stop at some point. So by continuing to practice, by continuing to chant the holy names, by continuing to render devotional service, trying to be very, very sincere, this faith will naturally increase and build to become very, very strong. And association is a critical part of maintaining strong faith, right? Because sometimes on our own, we are maybe a little weakened by the thoughts of our own mind. And so in the association of devotees, we can grab hold of that faith and that's how it manifests.
Okay, Prabhuji, thank you so much. One quick question, Prabhuji. Like, if there is if one has to choose between some service that needs to be done and one has not done the reading for the day, so what does one do? How do we prioritize and what do we choose at that point of time?
Well, it depends on the situation. I would have to ask some other questions around, what is the service that is being asked? What commitment have we made to it? What are the implications of, not completing that service? And then, we can understand what makes sense. The golden, untouchable service we have every day is our chanting. And so that service we never interrupt with any other service. Oh, I'm too busy serving, Krishna Janmashtami, 4 a.m. to midnight. I didn't have time to chant my rounds, as an example. Like that we should never do. We should always make untouchable our chanting. And that becomes I can say in some ways, the sole and exclusive, untouchable part of our sadhana. Then other parts of our sadhana, if we have deities in our home, we should make sure that they're worshipped by whatever minimum standard we have established and that we maintain. And Prabhupada advised that we should not have so elaborate home worship that it takes away from the opportunity to serve in the temple. He wanted grahastas, every home, to have Varnita deities, and they should be worshipped in a nice and basic level, and the elaborate worship should be done collectively in the temple. So if we have our own deities, then we have to protect those. And then when it comes to other services, reading and other, there's going to be some day-to-day fluctuations based on dynamics, but we should be mindful not to overexpose ourselves and not to underexpose ourselves. So we don't want to get into the point where we are stressed and we are racing to finish our rounds because we have this to do, and we are racing to finish our reading because we have this to do. Right? We want to do it in a very mindful manner. So there is a potential to become over-stressed, and there's a potential to become under-stressed. And so, one should seek some practical advice and guidance on how to balance that, or how to find, that medium. And it's different for everybody. We shouldn't compare and think, oh, this person's doing so much or so little, and I'm doing more or less. Each has certain individual circumstances that must be taken into account in order to determine what is appropriate in terms of the amount of service. Because again, it's based on ability. And so, as we were discussing yesterday, one should be careful not to imitate. One cannot imitate Raghunath Das Goswami's prasadam consumption plan, right? But we can follow in the footsteps by trying to be somewhat, detached from the types of prasadams like that. It's a customized solution that we must search out. So, not a, yeah.
Thank you.
I'd have to discuss a little bit more detail to understand specifically how to answer that question.
Sure. That's simple. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Okay. Any
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, what is the difference between love and faith in bhakti, Prabhuji? Actually, we are all having faith, but how do we develop love on God, on Krishna? So how do we know that we have love in bhakti?
Yeah, so our Shastra explains there's 9 steps towards achieving love of Krishna. And so it starts with faith. The first step of the 9 is faith. And by faith, one begins to associate sadhu sangha, like we are doing here. And in association, one comes to then the 3rd step, which is bhajana kriya, the practice. So the chanting, the reading, the association, the honoring Krishna Prasada. So the practice of devotional service. When one practices very sincerely, then one becomes anartha nivritti. That's the 4th step. That means all the impurities of the heart, or most of them we can say, become removed. When the heart becomes purified, then one becomes very fixed in devotional service, nishta. Because there are nothing else in the heart taking us any other direction. One has only desires for Krishna. And in that state, one then acquires actually the taste, the ruchi for devotional service, specifically chanting. So we have some taste now, right? We have some desire, some attraction. But the full pure taste comes in this 6th stage, when one has become free of all the impurities. And when that pure taste has come, it is so overwhelmingly sweet, so pure, that one then becomes addicted, a shakti. They cannot get enough. One mouth is not enough to chant. Right now, 16 rounds is plenty enough. 17, no thank you. But when one reaches a shakti, they want 2 mouths, 3 mouths, so much bliss one experiences. Then Bhava Bhakti and then Prema Bhakti, love comes. Pure love. So we'll get glimpses of this taste, glimpses of this love, this ecstasy, this happiness. But then it sort of dissipates. And that Krishna is giving us those glimpses to inspire us to continue on. And so it is a process. So with faith, as you said, and I say, I have faith, now we just have to keep practicing. Just like in anything, right? Someone wants to learn tennis. Well, it takes a lot of practice to become great at it. It's not going to happen overnight. But by practice, it will happen. Right? So by continuing to practice, by continuing to chant, to read, associate, that love will manifest. But remember that love is dormant within our heart. That is the nature of the soul, is to love Krishna. So we don't have to learn to love Krishna. We just have to awaken it. And in Nectar Devotion, we see Kriti Sadhya, Bhavat Sadhya, Bhava Sahasaranabhida, Nitya Siddhasya Bhavita, Prakutam Rinda Sadyate. That this sadhana bhakti, the potentiality of sadhana bhakti is to awaken the love of Krishna, which is lying dormant within our heart. So this is the purpose of sadhana. It is to awaken this love. It is not an aimless purpose, but it is specifically to bring about this love for Krishna. So practice your sadhana very nicely, continue, and this love will slowly emerge.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Wonderful questions today. Thank you. Anything else? Okay. So if not, thank you very much for your kind attention. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nanda Koti Vaishnava ki jai. Hare Krishna.